mean, I grew up in the media business, literally grew up in the media business. My dad was a newspaper publisher. And I remember my vision of leadership was literally the grizzled old white guy with the cigar yelling at people. And I never thought of myself as a leader in that framework. And it wasn't until I worked in women's media that I realized, oh, there's a different way to do this. And when you frame leadership as I'm solving problems for my team, I think it unlocks so many new possibilities for you. And that was really what I found enabled me to move into leadership roles when I saw it as, instead of the kingly behind the, Wizard of Oz quake when you approach kind of leadership, which I do think is still out there in the world. Don't show anything other than perfect strength, decisiveness, I have all the answers all the time kind of leadership, versus the leadership that is actually extremely important right now, which is we're all in this together, we are all vulnerable, we're all struggling, and how are you doing it? What can I learn from you? That kind of collaborative leadership is what I am seeing. So my dear friend Trish Costello, who's the CEO of Portfolio, has a great line that I've memorized. She just says, we were made for this moment. And I think that's really true. That's what I'm inspired by right now, is watching women run toward the solutions. And yes, we're not figuring it out this afternoon, but women are running toward the solutions. And I think that that's going to have a profound impact on the way we lead our society and the way we lead our companies.
My very first introduction to Serendipity was last year, where Anne invited me to speak, and I talked about the joy equation that I came up with as I've been on my journey of self-discovery. And the equation is clarity plus purpose plus your tribe yields a joy-filled life. And so, and action as well is included in that. And so it has been truly difficult during these times to really lean into it, because there's so many things that are happening in this world. But I'm thankful that I did the work prior to this, that I know how to curate these experiences to bring that light and that love to my life. And so if you guys haven't had that feeling on the inside of you that you felt light you up, that gives you the magnetism that you're drawn to something in a long time, remember the last time that you had that and what you were doing, and seeing, even in this remote economy, if you can have the ability to recreate that. It is a lot going on. And when I think about individual leaders within corporations, I will say that the uncertain times has really provided us a wonderful opportunity to slow down and reflect. And as a leader, that deep thinking should be and include the experiences that you want people to have of you as a leader. And I think this is where the redefinition of leadership, the title of this panel, really comes into play. I started recently reading Gary Bernison's book, Accelerating Through the Crisis Curve. And one of the first things that he calls out in that book is leadership is not all about you, but it starts with you. And I remember earlier on in my career, I was told that actions reflect leadership. And during these times of activated emotion, people are grieving, people are withdrawn from community and connection. They're looking to leaders to lead from a human experience. And I know Christy and Amanda and others have already talked about this. But if I would bring to you all what I have been experiencing as a leadership and how I've redefined how I show up as a leader, I will say that I've shifted in two ways. The first way is around vulnerability and truth. And we can all thank Brene Brown for the vulnerability shift. And I'm thankful that I worked with my coach on vulnerability over the last several years. And so when I think about vulnerability and how that shows up, let me just be real with you guys. I think we're having a real conversation today. During the last 6 months, I've been in grief. I've been angry. I've been lost. I've been scared. I've been confused. I've been happy. I've been sad. I've been anxious. And all of these emotions are coming at a time when people are looking to leaders to lead them through and navigate them through. And I can't provide textbook leadership during this time. And people are looking to us to do that way. And so I have been real vulnerable with my teams and real honest in sharing my truth that I can't do that. Like, I know you guys are looking to me, but I'm also personally navigating this right here with you. And one of the things that I've committed to doing is when people ask me, how are you doing? I answer that question honestly. It's one of those questions that I think so often we glass over. Like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Well, you know, last 6 months I haven't been fine. And so when they ask, I do take a moment and I do answer, you know, today's been hard, or I'm grieving the loss of my grandmother, or I'm anxious about, you know, how Kaiser Permanente is going to navigate through these times. And I feel that people are connecting in and leaning in that way. The other vulnerable piece and truth that I've offered is early on in this experience, I had to decide how I was going to show up, specifically related to Black Lives Matter. And I took the time to get the clarity. And what I realized was I could not, for my own self-care and preservation, be the university of Black people for everyone. People were looking to me to provide insights and perspectives and things of that nature, and I just couldn't. I was triggered. I'm feeling all of these emotions. And so I had to come up with a way to guide people to their answers without being their answers. And I'm a catalyst at heart, and that's hard for me, but it was a decision I had to make for myself. The second piece is around empathy, and this was also shared. And this is how I show up, creating spaces of understanding for others. And so I was really keen on not making assumptions, understanding where people are and meeting them there. People are in grief. I have employees that are parents. I have individuals that are displaced for various reasons. And I had to come with the understanding that the traditional way of work is not going to happen. So how do I create the space of understanding so I can still allow them to be positioned for success? And the realization that I'm not in this thing alone. So I'll wrap up, Jill, but I'll tell you guys this one parting thing that I saw on social media. If you could take one action away as a leader, if you have Black employees, check on them. I saw a post from the Executive Leadership Council a couple of weeks ago that resonated with me. And it said, your Black employees are exhausted, scared, crying between meetings, putting on a performance, and mentally checked out. And as leaders, we have to, put our fears aside sometime and have the honest, transparent conversations. Even if it is a check-in where you don't have the answer, they will appreciate the space to talk.
And to Shakia's point, like, check in with your people, maintain deadlines and consistency, or collaborate to set deadlines, but maintain the expectations around work. All of that comes from a place of like, do you have those relationships? And I'll be honest, I have never spent more hours checking in on my people and having conversations, whether it's 7 a.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever it is they need, meeting them where they are. This is, like, very frankly exhausting. But I think that's what it takes right now. And so my lessons learned as it relates to Black Lives Matter, managing parents, managing individuals who, by the way, are single and like trapped in their home, who are dealing with depression issues. Like, everybody is affected by this. So I think that the check-in point is right. And as leaders, that just means to us, it's a lot of time. And it's a lot of caring, but I think what you get out of that is a team that supports you, will follow you, and will believe in you.
Like, having an honest conversation to ensure that you really feel invested in that you feel that you can be your best in that space. And then when we talk about it's what is our community, our employees, how are we communicating with each other? How are we supporting one another? You don't realize how in those lunchtime conversations are running into someone on the way to the bathroom until they're not there anymore. And there's so many people within our organization that you weren't connecting with on that personal level. And when you think about the amount of time we spend in the workplace, losing out on those relationships that drive us beyond just professional identity, it can be really disorienting. So we've spent a lot of time thinking about how we build community more intentionally within our organization that feels organic, that feels like you're able to build those relationships. And then more broadly, the world. With our community, 150,000 women who have such different needs and experiences right now, we focused on creating smaller conversations. So how do we help women who are business leaders? How do we help women who are entrepreneurs? How do we help those that may be in career transition? Building those connections so that we can support each other, just like we're doing here today. Continue to move forward, to feel supported, to feel like you are able to get that insight from others, that you're not alone, because I think during this time we certainly feel very alone. But then more broadly, as a leader, you're oftentimes thinking years out, like what is that future vision, what is that strategy? And I really struggled a lot with that, because I don't know what's happening tomorrow or next week, much less where we're going to be a year from now. And I wasn't sure what was the best way to continue having that long-term vision in a time of such great uncertainty. And Carly Fiorina was on the podcast last week, and she had some great advice, which was, just imagine what you want the future to be. Like, what problem do you want to solve? How do you want to solve it? What is that, vision in your mind? And then just go for it. And it doesn't have to be, I'm following the straight path, or what is the, step-by-step trajectory, but it's just, what do you want to see happen? And as a leader, how do you just go for that and go for it in a way that you're inspired and that your team can get behind as well? So when you asked about what, from our leadership missteps, I would say the biggest misstep is not understanding you're helping the individual, yourself, starting with yourself and your teams, how you're continuing to build community within your organization, and then how you're connecting that to the future vision. Because we're all looking for some clarity and some support during a time when there feels like there's such lack of clarity and support. And if you as a leader can build that, I think you really stand for something and you're creating something magical.